following program contains sexual content. Viewer discretion is advised. Today on an all-new Dr. Phil. A shocking accusation.
My daughter brought up allegations against my fiance for child molestation.
She blames her ex.
I believe Brandon is coaching our daughter.
Not a chance.
Your fiance confessed to doing this.
He said he didn't do it. He convinced me he wasn't guilty.
You won't believe what he said in court.
He's not denying it. He's saying, yes, it happened, but she wanted it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
I'm trying to be an emotional compass and point you in the right direction.
5, 4.
I am not giving up on you.
I want you to imagine something for me. I want you to imagine a father driving down the road with his 8-year-old daughter, and she looks at him and says, "Mommy's fiance touched me in bad places." Now take a minute and let that sink in. What would you feel? Rage? Shock? Horror? Well, those are all things my guest Brandon says he felt the split second his precious daughter revealed that ugly secret to him just 2 years ago. But the mother of his child, Kemma, says she only found out about these allegations when investigators called her after their daughter told her school principal. That was days after the daughter talked to her father. So why didn't Brandon go straight to the police? That's what Kemma wants to know. Take a look.
I have a daughter who is 10 years old. She has brought up allegations against my fiance for child molestation. I do believe this is coming from her father and that she is being manipulated into saying things so that he can get custody of her. My fiance has been charged and is now awaiting sentencing for all of his crimes that he, in my opinion, did not do.
Kemma's fiance, Andrew, went to trial and was found guilty of sexual abuse and is now awaiting sentencing. But Kemma maintains her fiance's innocence and blames Brandon's vindictive ways for all of this. Now take a look and see what you think.
A few weeks ago, a jury found my fiance, Andrew, guilty of statutory rape and 1 count of child molestation, and the victim was my daughter.
My 8-year-old daughter said, "Dad, I have something I need to tell you." My daughter told me that Andrew had touched her in bad places 8 or 9 different times.
The first thing that came to my mind was that he didn't do this. Andrew and I had a great sex life. He wasn't deprived, he was happy. My daughter loved Andrew and even called him daddy. Andrew was a better father than Brandon has ever been. When I finally got to see my daughter, she wasn't very forthcoming. I asked her if Andrew really did this, and she said yes. People say kids don't lie, but that's bull. They lie all the time. After these allegations, I sent my daughter to live with my parents. I stayed with Andrew because it was important for me to have people think that I was still behind him.
Kemma would be with Andrew now if he wasn't in jail.
When I told Andrew what was happening, he denied everything. It wasn't until 6 months later that the police came and arrested him. Andrew said he was innocent and that he didn't touch her. They told him that if he confessed, they would let him go. So I believe his confession was a lie. I am convinced that Andrew did not do this. A week before the allegations happened, my daughter came home and told me that her father and her had a plan for her to go and live with him. At the time, I thought nothing of it. I hate to think that she's a liar, but I think she's being manipulated by her father.
My daughter is not a liar.
There is no doubt in my mind that an innocent man is in jail.
Kemma, let me ask you, when you first heard about this, what was your reaction?
Honestly, I was just like shocked, and I didn't even know what to think. I was scared for her if it actually happened. Like, it was just really a big shock for me.
Did you believe it the minute you heard it?
I did, but I didn't. I just didn't want to believe it.
And there came a choice point where you could either be with Andrew or be with your daughter.
Yes.
And you sent your daughter away and stayed with Andrew.
Yes.
Take me through your logic trail on that. How did you reason that out?
Well, I knew she'd be safe with my parents, and I had a lease that I couldn't break, that our landlord wouldn't let us break. And honestly, I didn't believe that he did this, and I thought he was innocent, and I wanted to, if I left, he would make him look more guilty.
Does that seem odd in retrospect?
Yes.
And you say intuitively that you just know he didn't do this. You just know it.
Yes.
How do you know it?
He's just not that type of person. I lived with him for at least a year and a half before the
Well,
allegations.
what is that type of person? Because I've been doing this 45 years, and I have to do an awful lot of profiling and digging and history building and interviewing and a whole lot of things for me to know. How can you tell just by talking to somebody?
I mean, I just knew Andrew. I knew he wouldn't do the things that he was accused of.
Yeah. And you say that people say kids don't lie, but we all know kids lie.
Yes.
Is that an excuse, though? I mean, children lie, but you have to look at the quality and the texture of a lie. Mm-hmm. If they lie, is it consistent? Is it detailed? Is it layered? And what is their motive? You have to look at all of those things. Mm-hmm. What has she been consistent in what she reports?
No.
How so?
She says it happened once. She said it happened 3 times, 7 times, and she's been very inconsistent with, what actually happened.
And you think the mastermind behind all this is Brandon, your ex?
Yes.
Yeah. And what's his motive?
He wants to have full custody of our daughter.
Right. Do you think your fiance cares for your daughter?
I do.
Think he really likes her and loves her and
Yes.
wants to be a
He
family?
was a great father figure for her. He would help her with her homework. We would do school functions together. We would take her fishing, hiking, play in the snow, even though he hated the snow.
Mm-hmm. So what do you hope to gain today? What do you hope to achieve today?
I just want help for my daughter and I, like counseling maybe, and just to have some help for Andrew and try to prove his innocence.
What if you're wrong? Is that a possibility?
It is.
Because everything I've read that you've talked about is exonerating your fiance.
Yes.
You did not talk about, if it's true, healing your daughter. You did not talk about ministering to her needs. You did not talk about what she's going through. Everything you've had to say has been about exonerating your fiance.
Yes.
Which was glaring to me. You made some statements about your daughter. You said Brandon has coached her. She comes home from his weekends and talks just like him. Why do you think that's significant to me?
Because it's her father.
That tells me you've got unfinished emotional business with him. That there's a battle going on between you and he, and that she's caught in the middle of it. You say, I sent her to live with my parents and I stayed with Andrew. I wasn't going to just leave and make it look worse for him. Again, focused on him, not her.
Well, she was safe with my parents.
You sent her away from her mother.
I still saw her.
You sent her away from her mother. Again, total focus exoneration on him. You said, I haven't had a whole lot of time with her because I've had my own emotions.
Yes.
Worst case scenario is she would turn into a psychopath or let Andrew rot in jail when it didn't happen. Again, focus on Andrew. I didn't know if I could trust her around Andrew ever again. I'd never want to put him through this again. You wouldn't trust her around Andrew for Andrew's sake, that she might lie about him again and get him in further trouble. And you haven't considered that she might be actually getting victimized here.
It happens twice. Like, I don't understand how I can be that bad a judge of character.
Well, that's why I'm trying to help you here. Because I'm really trying to help her.
Yes.
And so I'm giving a voice that she doesn't know how to say. Right now, I wouldn't trust her with another man in my life at all. You think she might lie on someone else?
I don't know.
It's a really sad thought that I'll never be able to share my life or time with someone while I have her. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, if she does this again, like, I don't want to ruin someone else's life, because if this is manipulation by her father, I don't want it to do another person at the same time. It's already ruined two people's lives.
Well, Brandon and his family manipulated me into having her. I wanted to put her up for adoption. I was 16 and a senior in high school.
Yes.
Do you love this little girl?
I do.
Do you resent her for what she's done, what you think she's done here?
I don't resent her. I just want her to get the help. I want me to get the help if I'm the problem.
Well, is Brandon really trying to get custody of the daughter at any cost? Well, we're going to meet him and his fiancée next, right after the break.
Kama has proven that she is not a good mother. The thought that I would tell my daughter to lie about being molested is ridiculous.
I'm more of a mother figure than Kama. Kama doesn't believe her own daughter when she said she was abused. The jury believed her daughter. The judge believed her daughter. When is Kama gonna believe her?
Your daughter tells you that a man is molesting her, and you sent her back to that man.
Yes, I was putting her right back in danger.
I'm here to explain my situation with my fiancée and her daughter. We lived together for over a year as a family. We were happy, and I helped her with her homework and went to her softball games and did everything I could to help her. We were a happy family until the father of my fiancée's daughter got involved by manipulating her to telling her stories that would break up the relationship and help to get custody of her. And I would never, ever emotionally, physically, mentally hurt this child. I love her as my own daughter. I'm asking you to please help me clear my name and help prove that I did not harm this child and still love her to this day.
Now, Andrew and Kama believe that her daughter was coached by her father Brandon to lie. When you're coached by someone to lie, it's real hard to keep the facts straight. And I've looked at her reporting on this. She talked about this in September of 15, February of 16 on some recordings, and in testimony in March of 17, and it was very, very consistent. Clinically, just so you know, that has a ring of truth to it. Brandon vehemently denies that he's programmed her and says that Kama has consistently put their daughter in danger by picking the wrong men. Take a look.
Kama has proven that she is not a good mother. When my daughter was 2 years old, her mom dropped her off with 2 black eyes and a cigarette burn on her back.
It was a mosquito bite that she kept picking at and a dog scratch from when she tried to pick up our dog.
Mom's explanation was that it was from roughhousing with a dog. I don't believe that for a second.
Brandon called CPS and told them that we had a vicious dog.
CPS told me to take her to the local children's hospital, and they proceeded to do an abuse check that came back positive.
He was always calling CPS on me to try to get custody because he thinks I'm a bad mother.
I filed for ex parte orders against Kama, and they were granted. At the same time, Kama went to another county and was able to get custody of my daughter.
I had to go and dispute the child endangerment, and the charges were completely dismissed.
Here I was trying to defend my daughter, and somehow Kama had manipulated the system.
The first time my daughter told me about anything sexual was when she was 5. She told me that she was molested by one of my ex-boyfriends. We had broken up. I called Brandon, and he told me to not worry about it. He said as long as the man was out of my life, we shouldn't pursue this. Brandon ended up calling CPS anyway. They found nothing.
I find it odd that the story that she told me when she was 5 is almost the exact same story that she told me when she was 8. The stories are way too similar. That leads me to believe that Brandon is coaching our daughter into saying unbelievable things.
The thought that I would tell my daughter to lie about being molested is ridiculous.
Well, another person who has seen firsthand what has been happening with Kama and Brandon and their daughter is Brandon's fiancée, Christine, who says the last thing Kama should be doing is calling her own daughter a liar.
Brandon and I have been dating for about a year now, and during that time, Kama has visited her daughter 1 or 2 times and maybe called her daughter once. I'm more of a mother figure than Kama. I care more about her well-being and her happiness than her own mother does. Brandon's daughter describes her mother as her biological mother, but me as mom or mom. It makes me happy that she calls me mom, but it makes me sad that she doesn't have that relationship with her mother. Brandon and I want to help his daughter heal and help her feel safe and loved, and we feel the best place for her is with us. Brandon and I are getting married in about 6 months, and Brandon's daughter is one of my bridesmaids. Brandon and I plan our life around his daughter. She really means the world to us. I hope Kama has a come-to-Jesus moment. Kama doesn't believe her own daughter when she said she was abused. The jury believed her daughter. The judge believed her daughter. All the professionals believe her. When is Kama gonna believe her?
Brandon, welcome. Christine, welcome.
Thank you.
Did you coach your daughter to say these things?
Not a chance.
Did you suggest it in some way?
Not a chance. Not a chance. When my daughter first told me these, I was too shell-shocked. I was too hurt to even think of anything to say.
Did you promise her toys or adventures or some kind of rewards if she would talk bad about Kama's fiancé?
No, not a chance.
Have you ever heard or seen him do that?
No, I've not.
But you believe that he has?
I do.
I am going to reveal to you a fact that's shocking. And when I say shocking, it's going to change the way you look at this if you're sitting on the fence. And I'm going to do that right after the break. Have you read the police reports?
I wasn't allowed to.
You do know that your fiancé, Andrew, confessed to doing this.
I do.
Well, how do you square that up? Have you read the police reports and all about what she has reported took place?
I wasn't allowed to.
So you've never?
No.
I said before we took the last break that I was going to reveal a fact here that would be shocking, that would change the metrics here and the way people looked at things. You do know that your fiancé, Andrew, confessed to doing this.
I do.
He confessed under oath. Under penalty of perjury, he confessed what he did in graphic detail.
Yes. What I was told by him and some family members of his is that he was just telling back everything that he was told happened, and that he just wanted to get out of the room. He had a awful morning. He went to bed at like 5 a.m., got woken up by the police at 8, and was given 2 monsters and stuck in the corner of a room and was just like interrogated for 3 hours. And he is not very bright when it comes to the law. He didn't understand that his rights at all. And that's just what he told me.
And you believe that?
I did.
So they took him in the room for 3 hours.
Yes.
Which is the length of a movie. Just to put it in context, it's the length of a movie. And during that time, he became so pressured and so under the gun that he swore under oath to a crime that he knew would put him in the penitentiary for years. He said, I would rather go to the penitentiary for years than to stay in this room. Does that make common sense to you?
Not really.
Well, how did you square that up?
Honestly, I was really mad at him for confessing because he said he didn't do it. He didn't do it. And I didn't talk to him for like a good 3 months. And then, he called me from jail and told me that, everything, and he was sorry that he confessed, and he just wanted to, tell the truth, and he wanted, a fair trial. And, we tried to get those things, but we didn't get them at all.
Do you know what I did before I did the Dr. Phil show?
No.
I am trained in psychology, clinical psychology, and forensic psychology. And I worked as a trial scientist most of my professional career. I've lived in trial. I know what a false confession is. I've seen it. I've seen a false confession. And I don't believe I've ever seen one in 3 hours. But that didn't give you pause when he confessed?
It did. I was immediately taken back when I heard about it. And he just convinced me that he wasn't guilty, that he was innocent. And honestly, I've been with him for like 3 years now.
You knew he confessed, right?
Yeah, I'd heard that he'd confessed, yes.
What did you think about that?
It validated my daughter's claim. It validated everything. I believe her from the start, but that gave it structure, if you know what I mean, Dr. Phil.
Mm-hmm.
It brought it all to light, and it allowed a little bit of healing to actually start for her.
I've got a question for you. I asked her question. She said when this came to light, she had to either be with her daughter or be with Andrew. So she sent her daughter away to be with Andrew, which
mind-boggling.
I find mind-boggling. She sent her to her parents, but that's a way. Your daughter tells you that a man is molesting her, and you sent her back to that man.
Yes. After speaking with the police suggested that since there was a custody order, I had to. I had no choice in it.
Did you consult a lawyer?
I did not consult a lawyer. I just consulted the police. Of course, hindsight being 20/20, I wish I would have.
So you delivered her back into the hands of who you believe to be a predator?
Yes, Dr. Phil, and I hated every second of it. Every absolute second of it, and I still do to this day.
How do you do that? How does a father take an innocent child and deliver her back into the hands of her molester? If you believed it, you delivered her back into the hands of her molester.
To this day, I wish the police would have told me something different.
Police aren't lawyers.
That's true.
They're policemen.
That's true. But on the threat of going to jail myself.
That's why you consult a lawyer.
Okay. At the time,
You'd go in and file for an emergency hearing, an emergency order.
Wish I'd have known that. I really would have, because if I'd have had any ability not to give her back, I wouldn't have. Because I was putting her right back in danger.
Well, Kayla was fairly certain her daughter was manipulated to lie by Brandon, so she decided to record a conversation with a little girl about Andrew and the allegations. We'll hear parts of that recording that landed her in jail. We'll be right back.
Kama tried to get our daughter to lie on recording and say that she had made all of this up, not once, but twice.
How many times was it? Just once? I was held in jail for 18 hours. My charges were eventually dismissed.
Closed captioning provided by...
Whatever they accused me of is an absolute lie. I knew I was innocent. I refused to take a plea bargain. They tried to give me 20 years in prison, then they tried to give me 12 years in prison, and then they tried to give me 10 years in prison, and I was not having it. I didn't want to take a guilty plea for something I haven't done. It's frustrating, because they say that, touching is rape. So they have an innocent man in prison.
Kama thinks her ex, Brandon, planted lies in their daughter's head about being molested by her fiancé, Andrew, in a bid to get custody and evade child support. She says Brandon is behind almost $20,000. Now, Andrew's father, Gary, also thinks his son is innocent and is collateral damage in this vindictive custody battle between these two. Let's hear what he has to say.
My son Andrew was falsely convicted, and I don't believe he did anything to his girlfriend's child. I really don't feel his public defender supported him like he should have. He kept telling them, we're going to lose. We're going to get slaughtered. There's no way we're going to win this in court. This is a situation between Kama and Brandon over the daughter, nothing to do with my son, and he's stuck in the middle of it. It doesn't make any sense to me that Brandon knew weeks before this was reported and still continued to send the child back to the house where he believed there was a pedophile. I really can't get my head around that. It makes me believe rather strongly that Brandon has orchestrated this entire thing. The interrogation was nearly 4 hours, and what was presented in court was only 15 minutes. They eliminated the rest of the interrogation because it would work against the prosecution. They offered Andrew a plea deal. He didn't take the plea deal because he maintains his innocence. There was no physical evidence, no medical evidence, just the word of a little girl. I'm 100% convinced that Andrew did not commit this crime.
Okay, you believe your son is innocent.
Yes, I do.
Why do you suppose he confessed to a crime he didn't commit?
Andrew never has done really well in stressful situations. He had developmental issues growing up, went through a lot of counseling, and he wanted out of the room. He said whatever they wanted him to say just so he could get out of the room.
I have to tell you, notwithstanding what you see on television, I've just not run across many people that confess to a crime that they didn't commit. Certainly not after 3 hours.
You'd have to know Andrew to really understand how this could happen.
Well, Kama took it upon herself to record 2 conversations with her daughter about the allegations in hopes of helping Andrew's case.
Kama was so committed to saving her boyfriend that she was arrested before the trial for felony tampering with a victim.
Let's start with this. How many times did it happen?
I recorded my daughter talking about the allegations against my fiance because I wanted to know what was going on because nobody was telling me anything.
And what did his look like?
Kama tried to get our daughter to lie on recording and say that she had made all of this up, not once, but twice.
Don't worry about it. Okay, so, can you tell me what you just told me earlier?
Brandon says that I recorded our daughter to get her to tell a lie, but all I wanted to know was the truth.
How many times was it? Just once?
Missouri State Highway Patrol arrested her.
I was held in jail for 18 hours. My charges were eventually dismissed.
Anything else you want to talk about? Anything else?
They felt you were witness tampering.
Yes. I got a lawyer and I got to talk to the prosecution. And I told them that I wasn't trying to make her change her story. I wasn't told what her story was actually about. Like, no one would tell me any particulars, and I wanted to hear it from her. And the only reason why I made a second recording was so in the beginning of the recording that I would say, you know, this is being recorded and do you understand that? It's the only reason why I did a second recording.
Well, let me ask you this, because you say that he felt tremendously pressured in that room.
Yes.
And I want to read from the trial transcript the end of the direct examination. If you did not touch this child, why did you say those things if they weren't true? And his answer was, the police officers in the interrogation told me that I was not going to leave that room until I told them X, Y, and Z. They told me that everything that was on that paperwork was fact, that there was no way that that child was lying, and that I was required to tell them everything they wanted to hear, and I felt trapped and terrified, so I gave in and told them what they needed to hear in order to leave out of that room. So that's what you're saying. That
yes.
You said you'd have to know Andrew. He felt the pressure, and so he admitted to things he didn't do. Okay. Now, Andrew says that he loves Brandon and Kama's daughter, but we're going to find out what he wrote about her from jail. We'll be right back. Closed captioning provided by...
My relationship with my daughter is strained. It hurts. to see her so happy. She doesn't seem like anything's wrong with her, which makes it even more sad and frustrating. Even when she talks about it, she doesn't cry. She just sits there like she's just rehearsed it over and over again. The fact that my daughter is so happy makes me think that none of this happened. If my daughter was a hot mess, it would be easier for me to believe that these things happened to her.
Well, that was Kama saying it's hard for her to be around her 10-year-old daughter because she acts like nothing is wrong, something she thinks a victim of sexual abuse just simply wouldn't do. Now, I'll address that in a minute, but I want to go to the cross-examination. It's your testimony today that you were frightened of the police, yes. When you were talking to the police about how you and Cammie had sex 5 days a week, were you terrified of the police? No. When you were talking to the police about not having any flavored lubricants in the house, were you terrified? No. When you talked to the police about the fact that the child loved you, were you terrified? No. When you talked to the police about the type of drinks you like to have, were you terrified? No. When you talked to the police about all the alone time you spent with the child, were you terrified? No. You told the police that the child did this to you, correct? I don't recall. Well, let me refresh your memory. They pull out Stakes Exhibit number 14 and played for the court and the jury. And he says, well, then yes, I did. That was you telling the police that it was the child's choice to do this. He's not saying he didn't do it. He said it was the child's choice to do it. He says yes. Just like you told the police it was the child's choice to play with your private part like a joystick, correct? Yes. And you, quote, let her play with it, correct? I believe so. Do you need me to remind you of that? No. This just goes on and on. He's not denying it took place. He is saying she started it. She wanted it. He's saying it happened, but it was her choice. Had you heard this before?
No.
This is the trial transcript. This is what he testified to in trial. Were you aware of that? No. He's not saying it didn't happen. He's saying that she started it, so therefore there's no crime because she initiated the contact. How old was she at this time?
8.
He's saying the 8-year-old child started this, so it's okay. He's not denying it. He's saying, yes, it happened, but she wanted it. Why she acted like it was a big deal? Yeah, because you didn't force her, right? No, I didn't. It was something she wanted, yes. And you didn't understand why it was a big deal. You didn't harm her, right? Yeah. You didn't physically force her, right? No. In fact, you told police the truth makes you look bad, right? Correct. Yes. Because the truth makes you look bad, doesn't it? Yes, it does. So you weren't lying to the officers, were you? I was telling them what they asked. And you told them the truth made you look bad. Yes. The truth makes him look bad. And he says he loves her, but here's what he wrote from prison. He described her as a devil child, lying, fat-mouthed, hate, daughter, bitch. That's how he described her to you in letters, correct?
Yes.
Did you feel the police were wanting you to say these things? Yes. Are the things you told the police true? No. Did you feel that you would be allowed to go home if you told the police these things? Yes. That was at the end of the examination. How do you feel about this cross-examination and trial? He never said it didn't happen. He said she initiated it, and therefore, no harm, no foul.
I'm not really sure how I feel about it. It's the first time I've heard any of that.
Same with me.
That's who you sent her home to.
I understand. I understand that completely.
Let's let this sink in for a minute. Are Brandon and Kama waging war for their own personal agendas rather than what's best for their daughter? We're going to talk all about that when we come back.
In order to have a relationship with my daughter, she will have to admit that she lied. It's been 2 years and I still don't believe her.
Our daughter has told me that she feels her mother has abandoned her.
My fiance has already been a better influence to my daughter than her own mother.
He's dating a very young woman that isn't mature and has no responsibilities, and she looks like a 12-year-old.
Well, Kama and Brandon have a 10-year-old daughter who made claims of sexual abuse against Kama's fiance, Andrew. He confessed, and he was found guilty, but Kama and Gary came here saying Andrew was falsely convicted, and all of it was made up so Brandon and his fiancée, Christine, could get custody. The 2 times he's been under oath, facing penalties of perjury, he said he did it. When he's talked to us, when he's talked to you, he says he didn't do it. Well, he wasn't under oath then. He wasn't facing penalties of perjury then. When he's got that looming over his head, he says he did it. Is this cause for concern to you?
I think it is.
Are you concerned about what you've learned here today?
I am concerned. As his father, I want to believe what he's told me.
Of course.
And nobody would want to believe that their child would be capable of doing something like this. When faced with the chance of taking a guilty plea in only 10 years, or knowing if he went forward to fight for his innocence, he could spend the rest of his life in prison, I told him, if you're innocent, you can't take that plea because then you're guilty for the rest of your life. And I can't explain why he said what he said or how he said it or when he said it, but it's really hard for me to believe in my heart that he would say I'm innocent and spend the rest of his life in jail knowing he was guilty if he had a chance to just say, okay, yeah, I'm guilty and only spent 10 years in prison.
I think he's in denial. What's best for their daughter moving forward? I'm going to tell them what I think after the break. Closed captioning provided by... As I say, I've spent most of my professional career in the court system, and my advice to you is to have a very candid conversation with your son, because you are where you are. He would have been better taking a plea deal. But you need to have a candid conversation with him and cut through all the denial, because he needs to throw himself on the mercy of the court. He needs to let them understand that he gets the gravity of what he's done here, the transgression he's committed here. Because if he's standing up there saying, I didn't do it, I said under oath I did, twice, but I didn't do it, they're very likely to drop a heavy sentence on him, because that's arrogant, narcissistic, and infuriating. He needs to own this. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. He needs to own this and plead for help. And to you two need to put this child's interest ahead of your own. You need to stop running your own agenda at the child's expense. And this child needs very specialized care. A child that has been through something like this, they are very likely to tell themselves that that's their worth, that their self-worth is tied up in their sexuality at the expense of their intellect and creativity and all the other aspects of their personality. If they don't get the help that clarifies that for them and lets them know this wasn't who you are, this is not normal, this is not natural, this was an aberration and you need to put this behind you. And that requires very specialized care.
It's also the prosecutor, myself, and her father actually have her in a counseling program right now.
Yeah.
So it's actually really helping her a lot.
Well, I certainly hope so, and if you need additional help with that, we will provide it for you.
Absolutely.
Because
my daughter's safety and security and psychological well-being, it's all that I care about.
And you two need to bury the hatchet and put her interests first. Fair enough?
Perfect.
All right. A special thanks to my guest today. It's not easy to come here and talk about these things. And if it touches any part of your life at home, hear what's being said here. Take action. Don't leave a child alone. Thanks. We'll see you next time.